going on? Hey, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Happy rainy Wednesday. But it feels good to leave a building and it's still sunny outside and it's not 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know what I'm saying? Hey, welcome to another episode of the In the Zone podcast. It's your man, Brian Foster, B. Fosterâ, in the building on the What's in It for the Black People Network. What is in it for the black people? Let's figure it out. Hey, happy to be with you again in the Zone podcast. As you know, every week is something different. You never know what topic you're going to get. Today I got a little something special. I got two of my fraternity brothers. We're not talking about no Greek shit, but still two of my fraternity brothers. And we are going to have a conversation about black men in the military. And is it something that should we be serving in the military? What he saying, boys in the hood? Ain't no place for a black man in a white man's army, or whatever Furious Style says. Something to that effect. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not here to say that, but we're here to debate it today. So let me introduce my guest real quick. In studio with me is my man, 50 grand, Sasha.
What's happening, people?
What's going on with you, brother?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Have I seen you?
Bro, I don't know if
during COVID? I don't think I have.
So
not in person.
Bro, it's been crazy, man. Crazy year.
Hey, crazy year.
Yep.
Hey, happy COVID anniversary too, everybody. Y'all survived it. Not everybody did. So praise and blessings for that. You know what I'm saying? It's good to see you, brother.
Same to you.
Hey. Then on the line, we got my man. This actually is my pledge, G-Pops. I'm super excited to have this brother on. One of the smartest cats. Notice I didn't give Sasha this introduction. One of the smartest brothers I've ever met. He's going to have a lot of knowledge to drop on us, I know. My man, 100,000 grand, Andre Batiste Bay. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's up, B, man? How you doing, brother?
Dre, can we hear you?
Got my mic turned up as
there we go. Now we got you.
All right. I say, hey, how you doing, my brother? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's good to see you even virtually.
Yeah. I'm looking at myself. This is kind of a weird configuration. I can see myself, but I can't see anybody else. So.
Oh, you can't. Hold on. We got
your picture.
You know what? I don't think I brought us in. I'm still. My board operator got me. I don't know how to work this joint. There we go. There we go. Hey Dre, if you got the show on, can you turn it down a touch because I can hear myself.
I don't have anything.
All right, maybe that's me. I don't think so. Anyway, so we're gonna get this started. Sasha, give me an introduction of yourself, where you're from, what branch of the military you served in, all that good stuff.
As you already said, Sasha Zoneâ, south suburbs mainly. Went to Illinois State University, got a bachelor's degree in industrial technology, computer systems. Worked for State Farm for about 8 years as a claims adjuster, and then left there and became a federal law enforcement officer. Been doing that for the last 7 years. Married, and I have one child. She's 11 years old. Been married 15 years this year, as a matter of fact.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you, sir. I was in the Illinois Army National Guard, and I served a tour in Iraq. So I spent, I did about 7.5 years in the National Guard. Okay. And that's my story.
All right. Brother Batiste, give me your rundown, my man.
Okay, y'all. Andre Batiste, Senior. Originally from Chicagoland. Grew up in south suburbs, grew up in Chicago, lived all over the place. Lived in New York City for a brief minute. Just been all over the world with the military and just living life. Graduate of Illinois State University, where I received a degree in what you're doing currently, which is mass media communication and broadcasting. And I got my master's degree from Webster University. Did take several courses from several other institutions. I took a course at Harvard University and some other ancillary schools within the military, Special Operations Command University, etc. Spent 27 years in the United States Army. that's coming in as a private. Initially in the Illinois Army National Guard, got out of that, joined the Army Reserve, and transitioned over into the active force. Had a long road in the military, and was proud to serve the time that I did serve. I have a 17-year-old who just turned 17 this past week.
Wait, he's 17?
He's 17, man. He's got his permit, and we're looking at universities, man. So
wow.
Time waits for no man, and hopefully he'll be a fourth generation alpha man. We'll keep that lineage going on.
Does he have an option?
Yeah, well, you always have an option. You always have an option, but let's hope he goes in the right path. So.
Love it.
That's brief synopsis about my background in the military. Did all sorts of things while I was there. Like I said, I was formally enlisted, and I became a commissioned officer in 1995. I retired as a major. I was on the list for lieutenant colonel when I went out the door, but at the time I was ready to go and didn't want to stick around any longer. As a retiree, I'm still quite active in a lot of different things. I serve on the executive board of 4 different organizations, and I'm a full-time volunteer for the USO, United Services Organization, which basically is a entity which was established before World War II to service service members. So I volunteer full-time to help service members at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Very active with the fraternity, Masonry, and we are establishing a chapter over in Italy right now, and I serve as the vice president of that chapter over there, as well as executive board chapter here at Fort Bragg. So doing a lot of stuff, continuing to mentor other junior officers as they come through the ranks, and I hold a position within the Special Forces Association. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a big ass nutshell.
There you go, my brother.
I told y'all one of the more impressive brothers I've had the pleasure of knowing for forever. That's my man. Sasha, let me ask, what drew you to serving in the military?
So my main goal really was to get money to go to college. It's funny because you mentioned the Boys in the Hood thing, and when I was in high school, and my old man was like, "Hey, you should go in the Army." I hit him with the Army ain't no place for no black man. He kind of was like, yeah, you got a point, So, but what happened was is that I had a girlfriend at the time that was at school at SIU in Edwardsville. Went down there one weekend and met a bunch of people down there that were, in the National Guard, and they were like, "Man, you can get, 100% tuition," and I was like, the light bulb went off and was like, "Yeah, that's my ticket to go to school." So did that, joined in '99, went to basic in 2000, and then when I came back, I think I spent a year still going to community college, but in 2001 was when I went down to ISU. And of course, that semester was September 11th, 2001. And I'm like, oh, never thought I was going to be getting deployed. But I actually made it till graduation, December of 2004, before I got the orders to deploy right after I graduated in January 2005. Yeah, so that was but that was my thing, was to go to school. And it did that. I must say I did that. I graduated. Then I had to go to Iraq and pay for it.
Yes, pay for what you did, I'm sure. Give me a little bit about that experience. Well, we're gonna dive more into it, obviously.
I mean, listen, I think that I chalk it up as a great experience. I mean, there's bad to it too, but I think I did learn a lot. I got to see another part of the world. Learn some things as far as just kind of like a job function. The job function we did, we were communications, so we provided the communications for the troops that were out like in the field, doing the work, so they could communicate. So I think the experience was good from some standpoints, but we'll probably dive into to the negatives later a little more.
Sure, sure. Dre, what led you to enlist?
Well, I'll tell you, I've always been interested in the military my entire life. I come from a long lineage of military people in my family, going back to the Revolutionary War. And since I was a little kid, playing with GI Joe dolls, not the little, you know, uh, 3-inch dolls. I'm talking about them 12-inch dolls. They were called action figures. Um, and I had a lot of influences, man. A lot of uncles that served in the military. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was fought in the First World War as a non-commissioned officer. My maternal grandfather ran the Army Navy USO Club for colored, what they called us at the time, colored service members during World War II, out in Fort Lewis, Washington, and out in San Diego, in Oklahoma. So, I come from a lineage of patriots, and it's something that I always wanted to do. Like I said, from the time I was a little kid. Now, those that know me, like you know me, B, you also know that I'm a very fervent historian, and I'm down for the cause of our people. And as a historian on Black history and knowing the plight and times of what our people have been through in this nation, I totally understand that boys in the hood mentality. In fact, for a long time, I harbored that. I was in conflict with myself about the military because of a lot of preconceived notions that I had going into this. When I came out of high school, I went and I got involved with the Army ROTC there at Illinois State University, and shortly thereafter, I enlisted in the Army. And I was like, do I really want to do this thing? I had a lot of conflict about it, and at that time, the first Gulf War had just started. And so while I was in school, I saw fellow students getting pulled out of class because they had been activated. So that kind of frightened me right there. My godfather was a very influential person in my life, Enoch, and he had served some time in the National Guard. He said, go ahead, stay with it, let it be something that if you decide to go and do as a backup, it'll be there for you. Take advantage of all the benefits, and that way you won't feel like you're compromising yourself. And so I did stay with it. And when I graduated, I went and worked briefly in corporate America, and I realized that I didn't like it one darn bit. I did not like the way that Black folks were marginalized. I did not like, having to basically sell myself to sell products and compromise who I was. And I realized that I had more fun and more adventure with the time I had spent in the military. And so I found a way to get back on active duty from that time frame, after having spent a few years in the civilian sector, where there was no loyalty, no comradeship, no adventure. Sitting in a cubicle was not the world for me. And so I came back on in. I worked my way out of the reserves into active duty, and I did a full career, jumping out of airplanes, being in the special operations community, seeing things blow up, and I had a good time doing it. And I met some really great people along the way.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Sasha, let me ask, what was your experience like? And not just, overseas, but just overall. And do you think that your non-Black counterparts see it or experience it the same way you did?
I think for me, it's hard to say, because I think National Guard being what they call a weekend warrior, if you will, we're not there every day. We're 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summertime until you get deployed. That's when you're there, you're active, you're doing the job every day. But it's a little bit different. So, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to really say if I got the same experience that like Andre would be able to give, because he was active duty, for so long. So he actually saw what would the way we described it was like the real army, versus my experience as a guard soldier. I mean,
Yeah, but sure. I
let's say
mean,
this.
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I was just gonna say. I mean, just like in anything, though, everything to me has what like politics with it. So getting promoted is kind of the who you know and if they like you and all of those kinds of things. So yeah, we deal with those things. You know, um, but it's just a little bit different, in my opinion.
What about your experience, overseas, in active duty for how 2 years?
Well, we did about a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
Part of it, about 6 months was training, and then we did a year in country, or just shy of a year in country. So again, a little bit different because obviously it's a combat situation, so it's still not really like the career world of military, if you will. We're on a mission, and we're trying to just, at the end of the day, we're trying to make it back home. But again, still, I guess you would say still politics with it. Now that's a whole dynamic right there in itself. I kind of mentioned like the real army versus the National Guard, if you will. And I don't know, I'm sure people would take offense to me saying it like that maybe, but we tend to feel like as National Guard soldiers, when you're attached to a regular army unit, you kind of get treated like that quote unquote stepchild, if you will. Any kind of crap detail that there is to do, guess who gets to do it?
Right.
Usually it's us. Things like that. At least that's how we felt, and
Sure.
it seemed that way. So there is those dynamics, those like I said, politics, political dynamics, if you will, in that we experience.
Yeah, the forever Neo, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It is. As a matter of fact, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Let me bring in the career man. Dre, what about you?
Yeah. Sasha brings up a lot of points there. The Reserve and National Guard, and this is for the viewers out there. Many of you may not understand. The National Guard belongs to the state. The National Guard is a state asset, and the governor controls the National Guard. So basically, their main mission is to go out when there's floods, when there's emergencies at the state level. In the cause of a federal situation, they can be activated by the president and pressed into service. The Army Reserve is a federal part-time capacity, and the reserve components, the National Guard and the Army Reserve, are there to augment the active force. So you mentioned forever Neo. Your reserve components are like your temps out here in the workforce. They're brought in to do a specific task. Many of them bring in a whole host of other tasks outside of what it is that they were trained by the Army or Navy or Marine Corps or Air Force to do. Many of them they might be mayors in their hometown, they might be police officers, they might be civil engineers, they may be professors at the college level. They have a whole host of skill sets. So when they come to the table, they bring a lot to the table. And so the issue is the active component. The active component doesn't really understand what they have until they get what they get. And when they get those skill sets, they will employ those skill sets in a good way, usually when they know what they have. But it's hard to say, as far as, because everybody's situation is different, man. And it depends on the type of units you're in and the type of leadership. We're in this culture right now, we talk about toxic leadership. Well, toxic leadership can be everywhere from the President of the United States down to the post office, or wherever, even in the school system. Your leaders dictate how you respond to things. And if you got good leaders, your leaders are going to take care of you and make sure that your people are taken care of, and so you don't have these adverse reactions. We talk about racism, and I'll tell you, and like I said earlier, I prefaced earlier, those who know me and those who follow me on social media know that every day I'm posting something about the plight of Africans here in America. What's going on with us as a people? And so I'm hypersensitive and hyper vigilant to racism and those type of things. But to be honest with you, brother, when you are in the military, your color is green. Now, there are situations where you have racists. There are situations where you have bigots, where you have sexists. Xenophobia reigns because it's a male-dominated culture. But it's no different from what I saw in corporate America, because it's a microcosm of that same world. So the benefit of the military is that I never met folks from North Dakota before. I had never met people from Guam before. In some of these other places that are part of America, I never met them before. So I had these stereotypes in my head about what they are about. And when you meet these people, you interact with them, you interact as a team, and you grow and you build together. And so, as with everything, you're going to find jerks, you're going to find people who are detractors, but by and large, my experiences with the military were positive, and I would encourage anybody to look into that as an option. You know, a lot of the stigmas we have about the military are based upon a draft time scenario, where you know, when we talk boys in the hood, what he's references is Vietnam time frame, and it's true. Socioeconomically, those who are on the lower rung of the totem pole, they get drafted into those type of things. But since the end of Vietnam, since like 1973 or 74, we got rid of the draft. This is a volunteer force. So everybody that's serving serves because they chose to serve. And less than 1/10 of 1% of the American populace has served in the armed forces at this particular time. So it is a pretty much, when you think about it across the board, it's an elite group of people who have chosen to serve their nation. There are many of our NATO allies where you still have to serve. Service is mandatory. It's compulsory. If you are in Israel, we have Americans who are dual citizens of Israel who have to go back and do 2 years over there in Israel. You see, and a lot of these other nations, service is mandatory. South Korea. We have the option here in America saying, yeah, I don't want to do that. We got the option of burning the flag and doing whatever we want to do. By and large, we're pretty much a spoiled nation. A lot of these other nations, they have to serve. And they have a more profound respect for how the nation operates. Not just from a judicial standpoint, but from how laws are created, what right looks right. You know, we have a discipline problem across the board here in America. And a lot of those discipline issues are cleared up when you go to basic training and have somebody square you away. We went through a pledge process that helped us get our discipline together.
Whoa.
We're not going to go too deep into that because, of course, we don't pledge.
Our fraternity incorporated
fallacy,
does
right?
not believe in or condone hazing. Thank you very much.
Right, exactly. We don't condone that. But keeping it 100 here, as we should. You know, when we came out of Africa, we had our own society over there in all these different places on that continent where you had rites of passage for young men growing into boys, okay? And so whether it was to go out here and you had to go kill a lion or whatever it was that you had to do to prove your manlyhood, we don't have much of that going on here in America. And so people are looking for other types of vestiges of brotherhood. Some of us find it in fraternities. Some of us find it in street gangs, depending on where we came from.
Truth.
The military provides you with a sense of brotherhood, a comradeship, which you will always have all of your days. Now, there are always exceptions to the rule. There are people who've had bad experiences, but by and large, I'm going to tell you from my standpoint, I had a positive experience.
That's what's up, Dre. And you said something key. And I had this conversation with some folks when I was talking about law enforcement and whatnot. And we were having a conversation about what can we do to make law enforcement better or better the police force. And people got all these different opinions or whatever. And I was saying something that's similar to what Dre said. When you go to college, a lot of these people you meet have never seen a black person before outside of what they saw on TV, right? Absolutely. It was dudes on my floor in my dorm that just had never been in close proximity to a black man. And we would hang out on the floor or whatever, and we got to know each other. And they were like, man, I got to be honest. My dad had me completely fucked up about what black people are. Like, I completely expected you to be 100% different than you are. And I say that the advantage of making police officers go to college, maybe not even be about the degree. Like, if you're a police officer having a degree in criminal justice, would it help? Sure. But it's more about getting that experience, assuming they open themselves up to those experiences around other people. So then when you come in our communities and police, it's not some foreign prospect that's like, oh, I got this preconceived notion about black people because I've never been around them.
But I think that is why we say that the police forces need to reflect
the communities in which they're policing.
They serve, right? So if you have, as a matter of fact, we have a frat brother that retired from CPD. He was number 2 in command at the time, and he retired. And I was at the Xi Lambda breakfast when he spoke, and he talked about that. He said, how can you have a people that police a community who don't understand the community?
Mm-hmm.
He used the example of, like, for instance, we're animated. We talk with our hands, and man, Joe, man, don't mean nothing by it.
Right.
But he thinks you aggressive.
Right.
He think you about
being
to do
perceived as this
something to
right.
him.
That's right.
So he's scared. He got his hand on his gun because he like, this dude is
Right.
wild. But we understand, bro, just trying to tell you what happened.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
it's being animated.
So,
yeah.
That's just an example, but, and I don't want to delve off into
that's a whole other conversation.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but let me ask you this,
Mm-hmm.
Sash. Have you ever experienced, and Dre touched on this for a hot second, said there are obviously racists and xenophobes and everybody else sexist. Did you ever personally experience any racism while you were serving, be it on a weekend or while you were on overseas?
So, I was trying to think about that and
perceived or otherwise. Maybe it wasn't blatant.
The thing that I can actually remember is, and kind of like you said, Dre touched on it a little bit, you get to basic training and you meet people, from wherever, Kentucky, from Texas, from all these different places that you never even, at least at that time, I hadn't been to, many of those places. But I remember, again, actually this was AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training. So that's after basic, you go to basically a school to learn your military job. So for me, it was like, man, we spent like 4 months there to learn our military job. And we lived in the barracks. It was kind of like not a dorm room necessarily because it was about 6 of us in the room, but not a big barracks like you would see on TV for basic training. Nonetheless, one of my roommates was from Kentucky, and I don't know what we got into it about, but that dude called me a nigga.
Oh, straight up,
man,
to your face.
Called me a nigga. And if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want drill sergeant, I would have gotten in trouble basically for whooping his. I held back, but yeah, bro called me a nigga for. I can't remember. I mean, this is 20 years ago, I think.
Right.
And so I can't remember what we were arguing about. But
so was everybody else in the barracks with you? Were they white, black, Latino, Asian? Was there a mix?
A mixture.
It was a mixture. Were they in the room when it happened?
I think a couple other people were in the room, but
was there a reaction?
Not that I recall. Nothing. Nothing.
Nobody was like, "Oh, wait, what? Well, no, we ain't doing that."
I don't even remember, man. I don't.
You just blacked out,
bro. I wanted to do what bros from Chicago would do.
Yeah,
but I held back to not get in trouble. But I want to say he came and apologized later. Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
For all that's worth, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, right.
Okay, but that's the only thing I can remember that was like blatant.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the passive stuff, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't.
No, that's blatant enough. Dre, what about you? You got a long career. Anything blatant, passive, latent?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said earlier, the armed forces is a microcosm of American society. And where there's ignorance in American society, you find ignorance in the military. A lot of times that's cleared up by working with somebody and they get past some of that programming that they had from their parents or the music that they listened to or whatever, these preconceived notions. But the thing is that, there are microaggressions. There are microaggressions and there are overt aggressions. And personally, I've experienced racism. but I've never experienced racism where somebody flat out in my face called me a nigger. I had more situations of that growing up in Chicagoland than I did in the military. Because in the military, we got some ways of hooking you up. I may not deal with you straight up right then and there, but I'm going to get you a little later on. Trust and believe.
Right.
So the issues that you find in the military, like I said, we've come a long way, bro. We've come a whole long way. But my master's thesis was about the disparities within the promotion system for commissioned officers within the Army. There, and Sasha talked about it earlier. So nobody's going to come right on out and say, no, we're not going to give you this job because you're black. But the thing, how it works is that you pick what you're familiar with. So if you've worked with certain people along the way, you've come up with them and you know their skill sets, and they went to the same schools you went to, they served in the same type of communities within the military you served in, then they're going to be more likely to choose you for certain types of positions. Okay, and that's on the enlisted side as well as the officer side of the house. Think of your officers, for civilians out there that are not familiar with the military. Think of your officers as your mid-level and your senior level managers. Think of your NCOs as those who are your hands-on managers for those in your workforce. So, yeah, if I serve with this guy, say for instance, I spent a lot of my years at Fort Bragg, and that's where I retired at. So if I served with a guy at Fort Bragg, 15 years ago, and I got a chance of picking him, and I know he's airborne, I know he's been through some of the same type of training I've been through, versus some guy who's a leg, and that's our slang for a non-airborne personnel, somebody that's never served in those communities. I'm picking what's familiar. So what I'm trying to get at is that if we don't get black folks, if we don't get our Hispanic brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters into the pipeline to go to those schools in the first place, then they won't stand a fighting chance of getting to those assignments, which will build the docket for them to be able to be promoted later down the line. You see, and that's how it works. You gotta work, whatever your vocation is, you gotta check the block in different places to move up the totem pole. If you've been sedentary in one place forever, they're not gonna move you on up the totem pole. And then we've got laws. So to be promoted, there's statutory timelines. So you have to serve in a rank for a certain period of time before you're eligible to go before the board to be considered for promotion. So some people who have served in those hot jobs, they get promoted earlier than others because they get promoted at the first time they're able to be considered for promotion versus the mandatory time that they're eligible for promotion. And so there's a lot of different nuances, and without talking too much shop here, the racism is institutionalized. It's codified with the gatekeepers that sit there, that sit on those boards, that make the decisions that, yeah, we want this guy, or we're picking this guy, and he's going to be that token. And so I'm going to tell you, in the military, I've been helped out by more white folks than I have black folks. Because in the military, you will find black folks, just like corporate America, who have gotten to those positions, maybe not by their own merit, but by nuances of who they knew. And also, they don't want to be looked at as, hey, I'm trying to hook this brother up. So they will go out of their way to not help you because they don't want to have that type of appearance of favoritism. You see? So you have all of these different types of dynamics. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely had to check a few folks sometimes, and on the sidebar, maybe chin check them elsewhere. But you have to be very conscious because we're in a politically correct environment in the military, just like in corporate America, where if you do something like that, it could be the end of your career. And not just the end of your career, you do something in corporate America, you go home. In the military, we've got what we call the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is its own set of laws. We got our own jails. We got our own legal system. So you do something in the military, somebody flies off the handle and you didn't like the reaction and you cold cock them, you could be serving time at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, which is a federal penitentiary run by the military. We got jails on all these installations. So that's not really where you want to go. When you do that, you stand a strong chance of losing all your benefits, those educational benefits we talked about earlier. You've got those preferences when it comes to buying a house. You got these VA loans. I'm going to tell you something, brother. I did 27 years and I'm not even 50 yet. Many of my friends are still working in these salt mines every day. They're going to be working for the next 15 years. I don't have to go back to work.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Andre, you got to be muted. I can't have this out of you right now because you're talking about me.
I was going to say, I'm still working.
I have to work again. The armed forces is one of the few jobs out there where you can do 20 years and you can punch out. You're getting paid for the rest of your life. So there's a lot of benefits, a lot of incentive to serving. If I decided to go back to work, I can work and draw another pension. See, so there's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of folks give it a bad rap, but by and large, it's a good thing.
Let me ask you this, Dre. So you said 27 years you've been in service. So you were in with the Bushes, Clinton, Trump, and Barack. Does it matter to you at all? And I'm going to be really specific about Trump, especially coming off Barack's terms. I know you're a patriot, as you mentioned earlier, but is it harder? Is there a difficulty? Is there a hurdle there for having to serve under the commander-in-chief, and he's Trump, as opposed to a Barack?
Yeah, so let me answer that, Brian. By military regulation, by the military laws, military people are nonpartisan. We are not members of any particular party. There are laws that say that we cannot wear our uniform in a political parade. There's a lot of that going on. So as a commissioned officer in charge of hundreds of people at one point in time, you cannot turn around and say, yeah, you know what, I don't like that president. You're not allowed to do that. Not on the surface. But the underlying notion is, yes, I was in the office the next day after our Chicago homeboy Barack came in office. And a lot of pink faces were mighty salty, mighty bitter. So going to the coffee machine, people were a little pissed off. Hey, Chad, how you doing, man? Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I ain't got no time for you today. But conversely, when Donald Trump bone spurs, as I call him, because those who follow me know that I despise this man. I despise him because he's the antithesis of everything what America is supposed to represent. He should have never even been in that position where he was in charge of the armed forces of anything. Can't even take care of anything. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The bottom line is that I had to bite my lip when Trump came in office. I was already on the retirement mode. I was already on the way out the door. In fact, I was going through the retirement process. After he came in office, I went down there to the Soldier Support Center and I told those ladies, I said, before you throw away those certificates, the retirement certificates that say Barack Obama, make sure you type mine out because I'm not going out the door with mine saying Donald J. Trump. Okay, so at my retirement ceremony, when they read that, it said Barack Hussein Obama.
That's what's up.
Okay, but you gotta bite your lip about your political things because that will get you in deep hot water. We're supposed to be nonpartisan, and we've never had a president so polarizing as Trump. Yeah, I served under Bush, and at the time I thought he was the worst, but he was far from the worst. Again, our elected officials represent the areas that they grow up in, what they know. And so if they're ignorant of a lot of stuff, it's incumbent upon us to try to pull their coattail. Yeah, it felt good to serve under President Obama, but I have my own issues with President Obama as well.
Sure.
Nobody's going to be perfect.
That's right.
You try to find the good. You try to find those morsels of sugar in the pile of salt. You're never going to have an epiphany where everything is just going your way 100% of the time. It doesn't work like that. Life wasn't meant to be like that. But you make the most of it. And our job as leaders in the military is to look out for those brothers and sisters that are coming up, to serve as positive role models for them and to help them out along the way, to help them get over the hurdles. You know, we can't have that mindset, you know, from Boys in the Hood where we say, no, a black man should never serve in the military. Because if it was all run by white folks and we didn't have black folks in strategic leadership positions, who would look out for those folks coming up along the way? You got to infiltrate something in order to change something. And right now, we've got the Secretary of Defense, our first black Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin. And I served under Lloyd Austin. I jumped out of airplanes with Lloyd Austin. It's a good feeling to see a black man in that position. So I know you're on a time hack, brother. I'm going to take all the time.
No. You're good. Sasha.
You know, he touched a lot of great points there. And I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit too. But
So, no, the question was, I know you've been silent there for a hot second. I'm not quite sure what presidents you all served on. You served on Bush at least.
It was Bush. So,
okay.
So, and he touched on that again. When we got deployed, it was during the Bush administration, and I was not happy that we were getting deployed, and I was not feeling him because I didn't think that, you know, yes, September 11th happened, but most people were like, why are we going to Iraq though? What Iraq got to do with what happened with, you know, Afghanistan and where Osama had came from? So, yeah, I was highly upset that we were in Iraq, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do the job. We did, you know, I did the job and came home. But as Dre pointed out, we thought that Bush was the worst and found out that was furthest from the truth, you know, because what we had in the, you know, this past 4 years was something else. I'm gonna probably leave it at that because I still work for the government, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But you know,
man, ain't nobody in the government watching. Go ahead, say what you got.
Oh man, you know they find stuff, man.
You already know that's true,
man. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's your job, right?
Exactly.
But so it was, you know.
I think Dre's saying something.
Oh, hold on, let me get Dre out. What'd you say, Dre?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, man. You know, he's right. You know, and Sasha, definitely watch yourself, man. You know, one of the first things I did when I retired was I went nuclear on social media. So I went from PG to X-rated in my slamming of elected officials because, yeah, you have to watch your entire profile. You will get called on the carpet. You will be brought in and have to stand tall before the man, speaking out on social media, in public, and all those type of things. But, you know, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, and that's the bottom line. So you just have to watch it. It's the same thing in corporate America. If you're working for IBM or Arthur Anderson or State Farm and any of these other type of things, you can't just go out here willy-nilly and just go bang some prostitute and get put in the newspaper. You know that's going to have repercussions. You are going to lose your job. You are going to possibly lose everything that you work for. That's just the reality of it.
We just had a president that did that, though, and somehow that was okay, though. So I don't know.
Well,
and we also had Clinton, and I actually had a chance.
True.
I met Clinton when I was deployed to Bosnia and Herzegovina. I went and took a picture with him, and you know he's a cool dude. And you know a lot of these guys, man, these politicians, man, you know they've got their own agendas. But I prefaced earlier, and I talked about Americans being spoiled. Most Americans don't realize that this quality of life that we have does come at a cost. We are used to, in the summer, cruising with the top down, you know, with cheap gasoline, you know, being able to go to 24/7 stores, buy whatever the hell we want, as long as we got the money in our pocket. I have been all over the world, gentlemen. I have been in many places where if you stand up against the government, your family can not only be in prison, they could be killed. I've been in places where, you know, when I was stationed overseas in Europe, gasoline the first time back in the mid-90s to fill up your tank was like $80. That was back in the mid-90s to do the conversion rates. There's a whole lot of stuff we take for granted. So we don't go to these places just all willy-nilly because of some ism, whether it's fascism, socialism, communism, or the current term, terrorism. We go to protect mineral resources, okay? So over in Afghanistan, the at that time when I was deployed over in Afghanistan, the world's largest opium supplies were over there. So you had Merck over there, you had Bayer over there, you had all these pharmaceutical companies over there because all of your pharmaceuticals that have opiates were coming out of Afghanistan. We talked about going to fight for oil. There's a cause and effect, and most Americans are not realizing that their way of life is contingent upon us going to get these rare earth minerals or whatever other minerals are out there. We all like our cell phones and our iPads, but there's minerals in there that come from places that are hot zones. So
Hey,
what
Dre,
I'm saying is that there's just a bigger picture. Go ahead.
No. You can, bro. You're preaching, but we got somebody else that jumped in. My man got his time zones confused, but I want to definitely get my man in here. My boy Brandon Somerville, what's happening, brother?
Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, I just want to apologize. Even though I got my time zones wrong, I got my wife and daughter out at dinner right now, so I would have messed the whole thing up anyway.
Tell P and the baby I said, hey.
We'll do.
Hey, real quick, B, I want to bring you in. Give us a little bit on your background because your career as well, and another branch from Dre. So I want to hit you with a couple of quick questions, so we can get your take on it. But give me your little background real fast.
Okay. Quickly, I'm from south suburbs of Chicago. Went to high school, and then I did a ROTC scholarship, full ride to Florida A&M University. So I'm a rattler. And then immediately out of that, I went to I'm Navy, by the way. Right after that, I went to flight school in Pensacola. Did that whole thing. Got selected to fly F-18s, all that stuff, and then got medically disqualified. So I switched careers. And became a full-time communications officer for the Navy. So I specialize in doing satellite communications, shipboard communications, basic global communications, space systems, all that stuff. Right now I work for Space Force, so I do outside of communications, all kind of stuff for that. I got my master's degree at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. So I've never paid for school in my life, and then after I get out, they'll pay for school again with my GI Bill. So it's been a great ride, and I've been on tours all over the world, stationed in Japan, been on aircraft carriers. I've done it all. I work for admirals. And then my next assignment, I'm actually transferring here from Colorado Springs back to San Diego. I'll be the what's called the Deputy N6 for 3rd Fleet. So basically, I'll be the second guy in charge for communications for the whole West Coast fleet. And then after that job, I'll be looking for retirement at my 20-year mark. So I'm a naval commander, 05. I'm sure you guys kind of talked about rank structure and all that stuff. So that's my background.
That's what's up. I didn't mean to call you a little background. My bad. I didn't mean to because your background's more than impressive. So what we were talking about, and I want you to jump right in on this. We were having a conversation about, and I know you're still active, so we were just having that conversation as well. But the differences in serving under different presidents, specifically President Trump and President Obama. Andre and Sasha both said, you grit your teeth, you bite your lip, and you do your job. But Andre stated that, you do kind of feel a certain way serving under those two different commanders and chiefs. And I wanted to get your feelings on how you felt serving under them both.
So personally, my experience, and I'm only speaking for, I'm not sure what services the other folks are in.
Army and
as a Navy guy.
Yeah, Army and the National Guard.
Okay. So as a Navy guy, it's not effective to me. It actually absolutely means nothing, whoever's in charge, right? So perfect example, I loved Obama, was not a fan of Bush. I was in an ROTC when Bush was up. I'm actually more of a fan of Bush now than I was previously. But anyway, of course, not a fan of Trump. But regardless, whoever was in office, we had a mission to do. The POTUS is the POTUS. You know what I mean? He makes the executive level decisions on where assets are going to go and what missions, not necessarily what missions we're going to do, but how we're going to proceed in warfighting, and not tactical, but the overall general strategy. And we're going to execute the way we execute, regardless who it is. You know what I mean? We got a job to do. We're going to do it. And talking politics in the military, honestly, political talks happen, but they're mainly behind closed doors or mainly personal. As a black military officer, I don't really talk about that stuff. And when it does come up, I'm really short. And I say, hey, I'll say this, and that's it, and let's not talk about this no more. We try to keep politics out of it because, when you're deployed or you're overseas or you're, in the Persian Gulf or whatever, I mean, everybody's brothers and sisters, and we got one mission. And we don't really care about all that other stuff because all that stuff will divide us, and you'll start forming opinions about people that you shouldn't necessarily do. Now, there are instances where, yes, that does come up. Yes, I've had people that I've worked for, and I'm like, they probably racist. Or somebody, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can't really trust them. I think that goes across the board in any career, in any industry, in any job as a minority. You're going to get that. So, you just treat it as such. You put those people in their place, you observe it, and you carry on. You handle business accordingly. What I try to do is, and throughout my whole career, flight school is when I dealt with the most racism. Because it's just a good old boy club, especially when I got selected for fighter jets. So then as a junior officer, I didn't really realize what was happening until after the fact. And I'm like, wow. But at the same time, all it is for me is motivation to outshine all of them. So it's like, that thing that we have to be 10 times better than everybody else and others and able to, ascend is true, but in the military, it's there, but I never let it affect me, and I always think of it as it's no different than any other industry you go to and any other pinnacle of any career that you go to, you're going to deal with it. It's just the nature of this country.
Yep, you are echoing the sentiments of both these brothers. So, yeah, we are all on the same page with that. Let me ask you this, Sasha, and we've already kind of touched on this, but I want to go back to it. When people say, as we talked about Fury Styles, as ain't no place in the army for a black man don't belong in the military, and all these other sentiments that get thrown around frequently. We've somewhat touched on. You already said that it paid for your education, and that's priceless in its own regard. But how do you but on the same flip that coin over, you kind of see where we're coming from. Andre said that was more of a wartime draft kind of sentiment. But it still permeates us as a people right now. How do you feel about that when I know you hear it?
So, like you said, Andre did touch on that a little bit, and I kind of feel the same way as he does. There are some misconceptions. I think that the military has a lot of benefits that many people can benefit from and so if we look at what's going on in Chicago right now and just the level of violence, the lack of almost everything, I mean, education, etc. I think that given something constructive to do, we could curb some of this, right? But that negative stereotype that folks don't want to go to the military because of whatever, they think that they're going to be controlled and they want to do what they want to do, like when you're in basic training, drill sergeant find out you from Chicago, oh, you think you tough because you from Chicago, all of that stuff. And so I try to tell people, look, I think it's a great option. Go to the military for whatever, 2, 4 years, 6 years, get your education paid for. You might find you like it. Do 20 years, as Dre talked about earlier. Let's say you join at 18. You do 20 years, 38, you're retired, pension for the rest of your life. Where else can you go and get that? You can't beat that with a baseball bat. We've got to educate our, the youth on the possibilities. There's a lot of possibility, endless possibilities in the military. You're going to go to the military. They're going to teach you a job. You can do that job for 20 years. You can change during that time, retire, get a job in the civilian world, making a whole heck of a lot of money, doing what you were doing in the military. Again, I think it's a no-brainer.
You mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I got a short amount of time left.
Go ahead, B. Go ahead.
So, two points to that. You know, I understand there's a negative stigma on the military for the black community, rightly so. But I think at this point in time, kind of touching on what you just said, you know, it's a great place to one, find yourself. You know, there's so many, you know, brothers and sisters out here that don't come from a structured background, that the military can provide that for them and make them realize opportunities and possibilities in themselves that they never knew they even had, right? That's one. Second, you know, black people should be, minorities in general, we should be jumping on these opportunities, because these opportunities are for American citizens, and just because you're black don't mean you shouldn't go into it because of these old stigmas about it. You know what I mean? Like, you're missing out on opportunities that you never knew even existed. And, you know, me coming from an HBCU was an amazing experience to, you know, ascend to where I've come in the military now. And over my career, you know, just the leadership principle is in the Navy, Army, Air Force, maybe not the Coasties, and the Marines, a very high percentage, a higher percentage of blacks are enlisted than the demographics of America. Meaning, like, what are we, like, I don't know, 13% of the makeup of the country? In the military, the percentage of black enlisted is higher than that, right? So I say that because, one, we need black officers. We need black leadership to mentor, you know, and be leaders to these young enlisted sailors, soldiers, and Marines. Also, as a black officer, that right there is one of the reasons why I've been successful. Just being, you know, a black face, you know, leading these sailors, they are excited every time they see me. Like, oh man, I got a black officer. I mean, like, they get in and they have a stigma about black officers, about the white officers and all that stuff, and they see one of themselves, they try to work their ass off for you. Mm-hmm. Excuse my language, but
yeah, no,
it's amazing.
Rain here.
Okay, so just on those two fronts, the opportunities are amazing. The potential that you discover in yourself is amazing. Using myself for an example, you know, my mother passed away when I was in flight school, you know, and I was down and out, right? So then I get these hot orders, you know, to go to Japan. And I say hot because I didn't ask for those orders. They basically were like, hey, you going to this ship in Japan. I think, Brian, you remember that, because that's when, you know, P was dating some random dude in Japan. But anyway.
See, why we put P's business out the street?
We married now, so I can say whatever. So I say that because that whole tour of me living in Japan was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. It hit the reset button on my life. It made me learn about traveling. Like, I'll travel anywhere in the world by myself and be good. That's something that would have never happened if I hadn't got stationed in Japan, if I wasn't on that ship, if I didn't, you know, I you know, I'm a big snowboarder. I snowboard because I lived in Japan. I snowboarded with, you know, two of my best friends, a Jewish dude and a Chinese dude, and we go snowboarding every winter we can. You know what I mean? For the rest of our lives, we'll do that. And those are experiences that would never have happened if I hadn't been in the military, you know, and it takes you out of that mind frame of black-only stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying black-only in a negative connotation. I'm saying the mind state that you got to do everything with black people. Mm-hmm. This puts you in a frame of mind that you can connect with anybody. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you don't have to be in a box. So I think the military opens up levels and it unlocks levels in yourself that you never knew existed. So that's why I love the military. That's why I love the Navy. And yeah, I got a ton of stuff to say, but you know, I misjudged my time today on this thing. So
no, that's all good. That's all good. Hey, B, if you got a hop, I appreciate the little time you gave us. And I didn't mean little this time. No, I do appreciate you hopping on and giving us your insight. You know, if you got to go, I understand. If you can stay on for a little bit, we only got about 15 minutes left, but totally up to you, brother. I'm gonna bring Andre in.
I gotta hop out, man.
All right, bro. Good to see you, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, bro. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. Dre, where you at, baby? That's the most quiet you've ever been in the 30 years I've known you.
But you know, you gotta let other folks speak, man. So you know, and there's so many different ways by which to deal with these issues. But if you want to narrow the scope of your question down, so I can kind of pinpoint.
So really the question was, and you kind of touched on a lot of this, but I wanted to reiterate it real fast. When people give these negative connotations about joining the military as a black person, how do you feel about it, and B, if you want to, counter it?
Yeah, so when we were all seniors in high school, one of the things we had to do was register with the Selective Service. So what that means is that from the time you are 17 up until maybe 35 and 36, you are subject to being called upon by your Uncle Sam if he needs you. You know, I mentioned earlier in the conversation about how some of these other partner nations that we have still have mandated military service. If I were king for a day, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, I would require every American citizen to do 2 years of active federal service. Now, whether that's in the armed forces, whether that's working at the post office, whether that's working at the Census Bureau, it would be some type of federal capacity. You know, we take a lot of stuff for granted here in this nation, you know, and until you actually become a part of the working mechanisms for what makes this nation what it is, you don't really appreciate it. We're quick to criticize. We're quick to become victims and, you know, sit back, oh, woe is me, and, you know, this, that, and the other. But we gotta there's all kinds of avenues for success out here. You know, brother that was just on, Brandon Somerville, he just mentioned it, man. He talked about being over in Japan. I'm gonna tell you, I would have never gone to Japan. I would have never gone to Korea. I would have never been to 3/4 of the countries in Europe had it not been for serving this nation. You know, that's taxpayer dollars. I'm a taxpayer. I pay for the system. I got some of my own benefits out of the system. You see, but if Uncle Sam needs you, he's gonna bring you in anyway. So that means your son, my son, Sasha, you know, the whole, you know, this is what it is. So it's best to get in, get some of that good stuff while we're in a peacetime situation. Learn what you can, make your environment a little bit better. Sasha talked about the GI Bill. I got that GI Bill, now it rolls over. So my ex, she was attending college classes on it. My son can attend college classes on the GI Bill that I earned. You see, there are all kinds of benefits that are out there when you are serving. Now, of course, again, like I said, I was in corporate America. I know that there are all different types of packages. They have educational incentives. They have relocation packages. They have a lot of other stuff that's comparable to what you find in the military. But it's that 20 years, man. 20 years, which goes by like that. Before you know it, it goes by. And you like, where did the time go? Some people serve 30 years. Some people serve up to 35 or whatever. But most folks, they get in, they get out, and they take their time and they roll it over into another agency or another vocation. And it's a benefit. There is no detractor. Any job application that you fill in and you put in United States Army, United States Navy, United States Coast Guard, United States Air Force, Marine Corps, you put that on there, those employers know that you have certain skill sets. They know that you are self-driven, motivated, disciplined. You can be counted on. And those are benefits. And what we do doesn't just affect us, they affect generations. So when we join the armed forces and we make good of it, that affects a naysayer from a future generation. They changed it. They say, hey, my dad had a great time. My son has lived over in Europe. We've gone to Paris so many times I can't even count. There's a lot of American kids, they dream of going to Paris. They dream of going to Rome. My kid got a chance to do all of that. All of that while I was jumping. He's been right there in the drop zone when I've been flying that parachute down and landing like a few feet from him. Most kids don't get a chance to see that kind of stuff. They don't get a chance to experience it. So it's an excellent thing when you can do some of this stuff. There's always folks out there who have bitterness, who have salt to throw, but I really don't have any time for it, man. I mean, those are valid arguments. We can talk about the death ratio of folks that were killed in Vietnam. We can talk about the Korean War, World War II. We can talk about the Red Ball Express, Tuskegee Airmen. We can talk about all of those things, but the military is constantly evolving and growing. Yeah, we've had some messed up stuff, but let us never forget that the first person to die for American independence in the Revolutionary War was Crispus Attucks, a black man. Mm-hmm. The very first person to die for American freedom and independence was a black man. So, I mean, we've been doing this from the start. This ain't brand new to us. And again, you can't change the mindset unless you infiltrate. You got to infiltrate these organizations. You got to infiltrate the military, and you got to change it from inside. You can't sit on the sideline and throw little pebbles and talk about, oh, it's bad, and then you don't know what the hell you're talking about most of the time anyway. You turn around and get a job over at U.S. Steel or over at Ford Motor Company, and you still being marginalized over there.
That's right.
So, I mean, let's be 100 with it.
Nah, that's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
We're coming up on time. Go ahead, Sasha, for some final thoughts.
The one thing that Dre just talked about, and if I would say I have any regrets, two things that I wish I had done. I wish I had possibly gone active duty and been able to travel the world like that. I remember in basic and AIT, or really AIT, I was like on that fence about, man, I kind of want to go active duty because I wanted to go to Germany. And my idea was I wanted to go to Germany and go buy my BMW in Germany, obviously. But, it's just to his point, though, like you get to travel the world on the federal government's dollar and see things that many people never get a chance to see in a lifetime. And then short of that, the only other thing that I wish I would have done also was something that Dre did, which was become an officer. So, I got out after Iraq just because, that tour, when you're National Guard and you're kind of taken away from your normal life for a year and a half, I was like, I can't do another tour like that. That's just way too long to be away. And that's why I got out. Like I said, sometimes I mean, obviously I miss it sometimes and wish I had done, some things differently or whatever, maybe stayed in, who knows. But again, overall, I would say, and I mentioned it earlier, like, having served in a combat situation has its negatives, the things you deal with. I've had some mortars laying 50 feet from me, being said, if some loud noise happens right now, I might jump, or I might not get under the table, but, those things affect you, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I was kind of alluding to earlier when I talk about the negatives from serving, in a combat situation. There's some things that I've seen, and I'm sure Dre saw a lot more than me, but, there are some things that I saw in Iraq that you can't unsee.
You can't unsee them.
You can't unsee it.
But do you think your time, your service led to the career you're in now? Would you have gone this route if you had not served?
You know what? I think that it had its benefits, right? Obviously, when you're a veteran with what they call, you have preference points. So, I had a 10-point preference from being an Iraq vet. So it helps. I mean, it helps, especially in the situation when you're going for a federal job like that. So yeah, I mean, absolutely helps. And yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, I'm federal law enforcement, wasn't really on my radar. But it's a blessing. And yeah, I do think that being a military veteran, plays a huge role, or played a huge role in me being able to attain that. And obviously, again, in order to become a federal agent, you gotta have that 4-year degree, and it paid for that. So I mean, it was there were steps to get there, right? So again, I think it's beneficial. I implore many youth to take the opportunity, consider it.
At least consider it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what's up. Dre, final thoughts, my man.
Yeah, so a few things. Yeah, I went when I was over in Germany. I actually did have BMW built over there and shipped back, and actually shipped 2 back. But those are some of the benefits. But let me tell you something, man. The first time,
of course you did.
yeah. The first time I got shot at indirectly, I was 8 years old in my bed, and the white racists out in Dalton, Illinois, shot up our house. Second time I got shot at, I was about 12 years old on the west side of Chicago. Third time was right off of 79th Street on the south side of Chicago. So, yeah, you can run the risk of death going to serve your nation, but you can run the risk of that walking out your front door. Okay, depending on where you live, and that's just keeping it real.
Yep.
You can always find a reason to be pessimistic. And if it wasn't for my godfather saying, "Hey, man, stay with it," because I was being a black radical, I was like, "No, man, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this," because I was on that whole BS about no, black man don't. No. He said, "Stay with it," and I'm glad he did, because it gave me an outside of corporate America, outside of living a life of misery, selling investments and insurance and other bullshit that I didn't want to do. And it got me into places and meeting people and seeing the benefits of this world, where I could really appreciate what we have in America. You don't appreciate America until you leave America. And I'm not talking about kicking it in the Dominican Republic or the Cancun. I'm talking about living in another place where other people are like, "You're American? Man, TJ Hooker, this, that, or the other. Baywatch. This is what they see. They think that we got 4 cars in the driveway. They think that we're all rich. They see Dallas. They think that we live life of opulence. And we take it for granted until you actually go into these other societies and you like, man, we got it made here in America. And so I encourage everybody to explore that. Explore it as options for your children, because it'll make them a better person. I'm going to tell you that right here and now. It'll refine you. It gives you opportunities to do things that you would have never done. And the friends you make, just like the frat, you got friends for a lifetime, and you're going to be connected. Whatever job you want to do, somebody will reach out. We have our own network in and of itself. Sasha talked about preferential hiring. Any military veteran has preferential hiring over somebody that never served. That's for anything. We got troops to teachers. You can go right into to become a full-time teacher. I could go back and teach junior ROTC right now, and I'd be paid the same I was on active duty. So there's all kinds of stuff out here, man. And it's so we got to get past stereotypes and just talk to people who've done it before forming opinions about the armed forces. And B, I just want to thank you for bringing us together for this forum here. I appreciate what you do on a consistent basis. I'm steadily dropping stuff out there on your page. I appreciate that in the zone. It gets controversial, and I don't care. I'll drop these grenades out there and let them fizz. And it's a good thing. And I really appreciate what you're doing, Brian. I appreciate the man you've grown into, the family man. I like watching your kids grow up. It's just good stuff. I'm glad to see my pledged grandson out here doing damn big things out here. And you're benefiting the community, brother. So I appreciate that. Brother Sasha, I appreciate that. I think you are my family tree also, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm down the line.
Yeah, you are. So it's a good thing. We got Ada Tall up in the house here, man. Thanks for doing this, B.
Hey, no, man, I appreciate both you all and Brandon for dropping in and having this conversation. It's really enlightening. And I think we at least open some folks' eyes to some possibilities and let go of just some negative stereotypes without, and I think Dre, you just dropped the biggest jewel, without actually talking to somebody that has done this, that has lived this life. And you might get a different perspective. So everybody should be open to at least having a different perspective and having this conversation. So I appreciate you guys. This is In the Zone podcast, another episode. We are on the What's in It for the Black People Network. Speaking of frats, we got another frat brother coming up after us. He is not talking about the military. If y'all already know, this man's show is wild. I'm not even gonna get to it, but that's the frat, and he's gonna do his thing. Next week, same time, 7:00. Me and the fellas are gonna come in here, and we're gonna have, you like our drafts. We've done the R&B draft, we've done the hip hop draft, we've done a lot of drafts. Next week, we're gonna draft the top 46 black movies ever made. By black movies, we mean majority black cast, black directors, black producers. I'm sure somebody's gonna try to slide some bullshit in there where it's one black dude and they're gonna say it's a black movie, but
that's gonna be interesting.
That should be interesting. So we're gonna have the brothers Said, Nolan, David Wright, Focus, DJ Focus, man, Dennis in the building. It's gonna be a good time, y'all. Another episode in the books. We'll see you next week, and then the week after that, I'm off. That's right, brother. Got to take a vacation from y'all occasionally. All right, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.